My name is Ileana. I am a junior at Metropolitan State University of Denver studying human dietetics. I believe I have some credentials for giving you some information and insight on the paleo diet because I followed the paleo diet for 2 years. And from the studies that I have done so far, I do know on how restricting, eliminating, and or substituting certain foods and minerals and how your body reacts to those types of changes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So talk about your experience with the paleo diet. For 2 years you've been on it. So a little bit more in depth, like where did it all begin? Go from there.
Of course. So the paleo diet was introduced to me by a coworker. She knew that I was trying to get ready for a friend's wedding, and I only had a couple more inches and pounds to lose within the last month. So she introduced it to me. She learned about the paleo diet from her CrossFit gym, which is one of the more popular ways that people were introduced to the diet. Within that month, I did most certainly fit into that dress. I was able to shed those last pounds, and then from there, I stayed on to the paleo diet. I introduced my family into it. Since then, for the past, I will say, 7-8 months, I've not been on the paleo diet completely. However, I still incorporate some of the recipes into my every week meals. My parents are like half and half, but my sister and her husband are still 100% paleo.
Gotcha. Okay. So how have you modified it? So what are you doing with it now? If you're using the recipes, have you added a few things back in?
So for the paleo diet, it completely eliminates grains. I have incorporated grains back into my diet. I have done this because I've noticed my performance in working out has suffered, specifically for running, because you need a substantial amount of carbs to keep you going for long distance running. And with paleo, you can meet the carb requirement. However, it is more difficult because your carbs are received from vegetables. And to try and eat so many vegetables to get that, you first get too full that you don't want to continue on eating. So it's harder that way. So I've introduced grains back into my diet. I still am limiting dairy. While on the paleo diet, it completely eliminates dairy, but I still incorporate it every now and then. But the paleo recipes that I still keep on, I still make my own snacks, and I still make my own breakfast items that are paleo, just because I feel like it's a nice, cleaner way to start the day. So there's paleo muffins and bread, which at high altitude sometimes don't pan out very well.
Right.
And then, like I said, I make my own snacks just because what I've learned from the paleo diet, making your own snacks, I feel like it's a better option. One, it's a better cost-saving option, and two, you actually know what you're eating in your snacks, and you can gauge better on when to incorporate proteins, the fats, the carbs throughout the day.
Yeah, you have more control.
Yeah.
So how has your body reacted to introducing grains? So has there been any negative reactions? So your performance, I'm guessing, is better now, thanks to that. But are you still able to keep the weight where you want it with grains involved?
I'm still able to maintain my weight, and I believe it's due to the fact that I'm balancing it out with the workout. I did know when I started incorporating grains back into my diet, I was bloated within the first week, and I did have some intestinal problems, like TMI, but I felt like I couldn't poop. It was just all stuck in my system. And I believe that's probably just, before everything, again, too much information, ran a lot smoother because there's nothing sticking to the insides of the walls. Whereas when now I have this grain, it's just causing a blockage.
Yeah.
And I wasn't substituting enough fiber to help with that. So people do need to be careful when they start reintroducing foods back into their system because they will have some negative effects, either in bloating, in sickness, or with their troubles in pooping.
Right. Gotcha. So things are calmed down with that now?
But of course, the same is also the opposite. Once you start on this paleo diet, your system is going to essentially completely release itself. And it's because you're eliminating so many foods that have been lining the insides of your walls that now you're running on a cleaner system. But of course, it's going to cause some problems within the first, or if you're used to having a high sugary diet, you may feel quite, exhausted in the beginning couple of days because your body doesn't know how to react. It doesn't know how to function because it was so used to using your sugary foods as a primary fuel source that now you kind of get the shakes. But give it a week and you'll start feeling a cleaner feeling because your body switches back to what it needs, the more simple foods to break down, the more complex carbs.
That makes sense because as a personal trainer, I'm very aware of your body's adapt. So I can see that.
Yeah. Once the first week is over, it's all better.
Gotcha. So what would you say makes the paleo diet overall effective for weight loss? Like what aspects of it makes it effective?
The reason that the paleo is an effective diet is that it switches people's gears from processed foods to clean, simple, prepared foods. If you look at a lot of processed foods, there's hidden ingredients that people don't normally think until they read the ingredients list that could be preventing them from reaching their goals, as well as there's a lot more saturated fats in some of the foods. And once you switch to the paleo, you're required to increase your vegetable intake and moderate your fat intake, which is something that you're going to have to learn. Even though it says you can eat meat on the paleo diet, you still need to be in moderation. So I think it's really great, especially since you eliminate dairy. And although dairy tastes wonderful and is a good or an okay source of calcium, it has a lot of fat in it that people need to really take into consideration.
Right. Gotcha.
So,
and is there what's up?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask the next question unless you have something else to ask to that.
Oh.
Okay. So is there any aspects of making the paleo diet not effective for someone when it comes to weight loss?
So paleo diet is good within the beginning 4 to 6 months of someone continuing on to it. Now, if you expect to continue on losing weight, of course, it's going to depend on the person and your physical activity, but research has shown that when you're on a low-carb diet, you'll lose weight in the beginning months, and then after a year, you'll just kind of be at a maintained weight level. So it's not for prolonged weight loss. You'll just become middle of the road. Another thing where it can be ineffective, as I mentioned before, is people eat too much meat because meat has a lot of fat in it, and you can eat bacon, but you can't, or you shouldn't be eating bacon 6 times a day.
Yeah.
So it's another thing you need to look at. Also with it, you have to be careful of what types of fruits you eat. On the paleo diet, it is restrictive on the certain types. You want to avoid the ones that really spike up your glucose levels.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're out grocery shopping, fruit's not going to have a label on it telling you, like, oh, this is what's going to happen. So it's something you'll have to research ahead of time, which people who are starting a diet, they don't normally take the time to research foods that are good or bad and why they're good or bad. So with this paleo diet, you definitely have to sit down when you first started out and actually research what you can eat and what you cannot eat.
Right. I've been hearing something really interesting. It sounds like to me, tell me if this is true, you're more into the paleo world, is there different perspectives of what the paleo diet is? It sounds like there's a wide variety of different opinions on like how to eat paleo diet. Is that true?
There is, and that's due to like the people who are, the authors that are writing the book, because everyone has a different thought process on what constitutes paleo, which in reality, the paleo diet is supposed to be based off of the Paleolithic era, what foods were available around then. And that's really hard to say without being someone extremely knowledgeable in that area of what foods were available. So, of course, you're going to have people who say, like, oh, you can eat this, but you cannot eat that.
Mm-hmm.
Because who knows what exactly was around. And then you have some people go as far as being nitpicky as in processed foods. Well, you have flour, and they have coconut flour available. They have almond flour, which are all acceptable on the paleo diet. But you have some people who say, well, that still constitutes as a processed food because it went through a manufacturer's hands.
Right, there's different levels.
Right. So there's definitely different levels. You'll have different books who will say, I know, for instance, some will say you can't eat a banana. Some say you can't eat a banana. Some say you can't eat quinoa. Some say you can. So there's not a base level where everyone can agree on certain foods.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking at is I'm actually reading the Paleo Diet book by, I think the author's name is Lauren. Sorry, Mr. Author or Miss Author, Mr. Author from mispronouncing your name. Anyways, he made some claims in his book, and I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on some of them, since you have a little bit of nutritional knowledge thanks to your schooling. So if one of the claims he mentioned in the book was, if one reduces their carbohydrate intake specifically, will they see a decrease in blood triglycerides and increase in good cholesterol? So that's the first question I have.
Right. So there is some merit behind that statement. The carbohydrates that they are referring to are your simple carbohydrates, so your sugars, things such as alcohol, and I can't remember the next one, but there's and the fats. So if you remove those, of course, it will decrease your blood triglycerides, which essentially blood triglycerides are fat, the fat that's found in your blood system.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, with the simple carbs, you won't have that floating around into your system. And so there will be less chances of your LDL, the low-density lipoprotein, increasing, which that's what, if you have a high LDL, it tends to lead to, I can't pronounce this word, atherosclerosis.
I got you.
I can't pronounce that word.
Clogging of the arteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what your factor is. So when you are removing those carbs, they're saying you're increasing your fruits, so it's helping out your system. You're running more on cleaner intestinal wall, cleaner blood. Your arteries will be a lot healthier than when they first started out with.
Okay. Awesome. And the second question I have when it comes to some statements that I found in the book, do we need starches in our diet? And if so, why should we have them? Why shouldn't we have them? One reason you mentioned was if you do a lot of activity, it's good to have some starches in your diet, like a sweet potato. But is that the only reason? Is there any other reason why we should or should not have starches in our diet? Because the book that I'm reading promotes non-starchy fruits and vegetables. It doesn't appear to like starch very well.
So starch is good and it's bad. Starches are good. And some starches specifically are good because they provide long-lasting fuel because they're more of a complex carb and it will take your body longer to break it down, providing you more fuel in your system. So a good example of a good starch would be a sweet potato, which the paleo diet allows you to have. However, then you have the bad starches like a good old-fashioned potato where that's not as great because it is so high in calories and it doesn't have any other nutritional value to it. And that's where they're mainly trying to draw you away from. So it's kind of actually funny on how the paleo diet is trying to say no for starches, but yet they still say you can eat a sweet potato, and another starchy vegetable that they promote is squash, and that does have starch. So you want starch in your diet, one, because it promotes satiety. It can do the longer-lasting fuel, but you need to moderate it because you can end up eating too many calories.
Gotcha. Okay. One question I forgot to ask. Is there any aspect of the diet that we may need more research on? I think last time we talked about quinoa.
Right. So I would say in regards to quinoa, there definitely needs to be more research. That's one of the things that people are going back and forth on, like, oh, isn't it acceptable grain? Well, it was back in the day. But then people are like, well, it's still a grain, but it's very good for you. It provides protein. It still provides a good amount of carbs. Another thing is they need to have, as mentioned earlier, more set group of listing of foods that you can eat. And there needs to definitely be more research in foods for people who prefer to be athletic, because as of right now, the market is still very small in that area. So they definitely need to do more research on how they can meet that niche market, as well as providing foods that are sustainable on the shelf, because the paleo diet really emphasizes on fresh food. Well, that's not going to be very available to places that have a food desert, or just people in general who like to have something that can stay in their pantry for more than a week.
Right. And my last question is it true that the saturated fat type, stearic acid, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, stearic.
Is good, whereas others are not so good for your health?
So stearic acid has been proven to be good for your health. There was a study done to versus stearic acid versus the other saturated fats in this contributing to cardiovascular disease as well as overall health. Now with stearic acid, as of right now, there's not been strong enough evidence to say it's a contributing factor to cardiovascular, as well as it saying that it's also not a contributing factor, like it's still in the middle of the road. However, stearic acid is still a precursor to oleic acid, which is an essential fatty acid that your body needs, as well as stearic acid. It would almost be, I would not say impossible, but it would be extremely hard to avoid in the everyday diet because it's naturally made and found in animal fat as well as in plant products. So to try and say to get rid of it, it would be difficult. This is a good fatty acid to have in your body. You need it.
Right. So any closing thoughts overall when it comes to any of this?
So closing thoughts, I would still say the paleo diet is a great diet. I feel like compared to other diets that are out there, it's more of my favorite, and I only say that due to its emphasis on fresh foods and being eaten, as well as it steering clear of processed foods. There's a lot of diets where they ask you to supplement with shakes or with appetite suppressants, which I don't feel like is that great. Or there's, for instance, the Atkins diet, which totally has you steer clear of carbohydrates, but you need carbohydrates. So fortunately, the paleo diet, yes, they say to steer clear of it, so they say you need to meet a certain requirement on vegetables, which I think is also another great thing. This diet doesn't say if you weigh 185 pounds, you're only on a 1,500 calorie restriction. There is no calorie restriction. It says you need to eat as much as you can every single day until you feel full, and you're eating fruits and vegetables and healthy fats. So I think you're doing your body a really good justice. The only problem is people need to know that they will have to change their entire lifestyle. They'll have to change their grocery habits. They'll have to actually start looking at labels, which will require some time, and actually learning about when fruits and vegetables are in season and on how to prepare it, the different cooking styles. So people need to be prepared to set more time aside in the kitchen. So unfortunately, if you don't like to cook or if you don't have that much time, this may not be the lifestyle for you.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for doing this for a second time.
Well, I hope everything has been informative and it works for your company.
Has been just as informative. So this will be on YouTube and maybe SoundCloud. We'll see. But I will let you know when it's up. Thank you very much. And
oh man, that's crazy. Thank you.
Oh,
I think it's crazy that it's on YouTube and stuff.
Oh, yeah, definitely will be.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Have a good one.